Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Monsters of Our Dimension. This will be our fourth episode. Thank you for tuning in.
I am your host, Kelly Gomez.
And I am the co-host, Alan Moran.
We missed you guys so much. We went on a little weekend getaway, which is why we have not been able to post any new episodes. Do you want to tell them where we went?
We ended up going to AC for a weekend with my family. It was pretty lit. We ended up going to the beach, doing the carnival, and we checked out the nightlife out there, which was pretty cool.
It's very fun. Definitely AC is worth a weekend getaway, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But it's good to be back. So today's episode, it ties both true crime and the supernatural, which is basically what our podcast is all about. So I really like how with today's episode, we can really intertwine both of these dimensions together. So as I was scrolling through TikTok, I came across a video that kind of spoke on the inspiration of what I believe to be a classic 2000s horror movie, Jeepers Creepers. You've watched Jeepers Creepers, right?
I love Jeepers Creepers.
I think I'm the one that showed it to you, right?
Right. And then that movie, I remember when I was a kid, I didn't like to watch it because it frightened me, like the way he looked and just like the whole how he ate people and so I didn't really get to watch that movie until like now that I'm older and you put me on it and I was like, wow, this movie's like really good.
It's really good. I mean, I'm surprised if a lot of you have not watched it, but if you haven't, please watch it. It's worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
But on today's episode, we will be diving into the real life case that inspired this cult classic. Now, before I start, warning, this episode will contain very gory and graphic details, so viewer discretion is advised. Our case sources are wikipedia.org, wickedhorror.com, ihorror.com, Unsolved Mysteries Season 2, Episode 20, and allthat'sinteresting.com. For those that have not watched Jeepers Creepers, the 2001 horror movie that captivated audiences nationwide with its simple yet effective story. It stars Gina Phillips and Justin Long. You remember Justin Long, right?
I remember Justin Long.
Okay, yeah. So for those that don't know, he came out in Barbarian. He was the famous Hollywood guy that was getting
basically blackballed from Hollywood. I mean, he was the owner of the Airbnb of the plot of that movie, obviously.
So that's Justin Long. And as Trish and Derry Jenner, they play a brother and a sister. They are in college who are traveling home for spring break. As they drive through the isolated countryside, an old truck threateningly tailgates them until the truck passes them. So it's like those drivers who honk at you because they think you're driving like really slow, so they end up just passing you. So it's like one of those situations. And after a few miles, they notice that the same truck mysteriously parks like right next to an abandoned church. Trish and Derry are looking at the driver when it seems like he is dumping what appears to be a body wrapped in blood-stained sheet into a large pipe that sticks out of the ground. Unfortunately for Trish and Derry, the driver notices them and starts pursuing them until he runs them off the road. After the truck drives off, Derry and Trish go back to the church to investigate. Once Derry is at the bottom of the pipe, he discovers something so nightmarish it's almost impossible to believe. Inside, he finds a dying man with stitches running down his stomach and hundreds of corpses sewn to the basement's walls and ceiling. Trish and Derry then go to a diner and contact the police. That is when they discover that truck driver is in fact a demon known as the Creeper, which starts to haunt them as its next victims. This demon is unlike anything else. It awakens every 23rd spring for 23 days to harvest and eat the organs of human beings. So, I don't want to spoil the whole movie, but this church scene is very vital to understand the connection to the real life case. And as another side note, this movie made me so scared of driving in the isolated countryside. Like, no thank you. I am happy to be stuck at the traffic in the expressway. That's just me though.
Yeah, no, that movie was really creepy. You know, and it only tends to happen on like, you know, rural areas like that. You know, like something of that nature. So I feel like, you know, that movie really captured, you know,
That like
that.
eeriness.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it makes you like not want to stop anywhere like that.
Exactly.
Like, you know, just keep going, mind your business. If you burying a body, oh, I ain't see
yeah,
nothing.
nothing. You know, just gonna keep driving.
Yeah.
10 years before the movie was released, it was 1991 in Coldwater, Michigan. It was Easter Sunday when Ray and Marie Thornton went on a drive in the country, which they did every weekend. They were driving south on Snow Prairie Road when suddenly a van drove past them at a very high speed. Ray and Marie couldn't help but notice just how crazy and fast the person was driving. Marie even noted, quote, "Geez, he must be in a hurry." Several miles later, they noticed the van once again next to a schoolhouse. As they approached the abandoned schoolhouse, Ray and Marie saw the man behind the schoolhouse, and he had what appeared to be to Mary a bloody sheet. Mary panicked and told her husband that man has a bloody sheet. As they kept driving, Mary noticed that the van parked between the building and a big tank. Just minutes later, that same van appeared and was coming behind Ray and Mary at full speed. The man in the van tailgated them for over 2 miles. Finally, Ray decided to get off the highway, and they noticed that the van pulled over to the side of the road. Ray kept driving on a secluded road, but they decided to turn around and to try to get a license plate number. Ray and Marie felt that if they could get a license plate number, they could turn it into the police. They were very suspicious about the man in the van, and they felt strongly that the police should be notified. So, these are the times when people should not mind their business, in my opinion.
Yeah.
When they finally saw the van again, they saw the man changing his license plate. But that was not the only thing they spotted. The man had left the passenger side door open, and that is when Marie saw blood all over the door. Ray and Marie knew right then and there that man had done something terrible. Ray drove back to the abandoned schoolhouse in search of the bloody sheet. Mary did an interview for an Unsolved Mysteries episode and recalls how nervous she was when they got back to that schoolhouse. Even though Marie saw a bloody sheet, they still wanted to confirm what he had been carrying and trying to get rid of. When they finally found it, it ended up being a blood-soaked blanket. So, does this event sound familiar?
It sounds very similar. Yeah, very similar to the movie. Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to this later, but I just kind of wanted to point out.
Yeah.
Ray and Marie did what any good person would do. They called the Michigan State Police. Little did they know that the police were already searching the area for that man and his injured wife. Dennis Henry Dupuy was born in 1943 in Michigan. As an adult, he worked as a property assessor. In 1971, he married Marilyn, who was a popular high school counselor in Coldwater, Michigan. Dennis and Marilyn Dupuy lived a comfortable life. The married couple had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. To everyone else, they seemed like the perfect family. But beneath the surface, this family was not perfect. Dennis was angry, withdrawn, paranoid, and controlling. Dennis isolated himself from the family and always accused Marilyn of turning the children against him. In an interview with Unsolved Mysteries, Julie Dupuy, daughter of Dennis and Marilyn, stated that, quote, "It's not that they, fought all the time, because they didn't. It was just, they just didn't really talk." In an interview with Ann Dunkel, Marilyn's co-worker, Ann stated that Marilyn told her that she was very unhappy and that the lawyer or anyone else asked why she wanted to get a divorce, all Marilyn would say is that the marriage was broken and there was no longer a marriage there. After 18 years of marriage, Marilyn finally decided to divorce in 1989. Dennis was granted limited visitation rights, but often the children didn't want to spend time with him. Dennis also did not keep the house since he had made no claim for it. So basically, Marilyn stayed with the house. But he did maintain a home office in the garage. Things started to escalate rapidly. Marilyn had changed the lock and doors of the house, but when she would come home after work, Dennis would be inside the house, just sitting on the couch. This just wasn't a one-time thing. Marilyn was confused and scared because she didn't understand how Dennis would get inside. In an interview with C. Jan Morawski, Dennis's co-worker, C. Jan stated that Dennis confided in him and told him that he was contemplating on committing suicide and murder.
Wow.
Now, if someone is telling you that I might commit murder, don't take it as a joke. I have read about so many true crime cases where there's always that person that confides in someone, and that someone just dismisses it, thinking that it's like, okay, they're not serious, it's just a joke. Get that person help. I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10, they're not joking. You don't joke about those things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I guess this was a time where mental health wasn't really, looked at as much as it is now. Maybe. I mean, what year did you say this was? 19
in the 1990s. So you're right. It wasn't really spoken that much how it is now.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, it is crazy that they just brushed that off when he said it, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The divorce was officially finalized in December 1989, and just 5 months later, an unspeakable tragedy would happen. It was Easter Sunday, 1990. Dennis came to pick up the kids. His youngest daughter, Julie, insisted that she would not go with him. As Dennis went inside the home, he became very angry, especially when his son Scott also did not want to go. Marilyn tried to talk and reason with Dennis, but he just kept getting angrier and angrier, and he grabbed Marilyn by the arms and started shouting at her, making accusations. This argument was escalating by the second, and it was turning violent. Dennis was grappling Marilyn and pushed her down the basement stairs. But Dennis didn't stop there. He beat her mercilessly at the bottom of the stairs. The children were pleading and screaming at him to stop, but he would not listen. He was far gone. Jennifer, the oldest daughter, ran outside to a neighbor's house to call the police. Julie, the middle child, recalled in an Unsolved Mysteries interview that, quote, she wasn't walking completely on her own. He was like holding her up. And when they were walking by, I just said, Mom, Mom. And she didn't even look at me. She was kind of like in a daze. So Dennis just picks Marilyn up, and you can tell that something's wrong with her. Like, she's out of it.
Yeah.
It was without no doubt that Marilyn was seriously injured. Dennis told his children that he was taking her to the hospital, but that was a lie. The Dupuis never arrived at the hospital. The police immediately started searching for the missing couple. That same afternoon, Ray and Marie Thornton found a bloody blanket in the abandoned schoolhouse. When the Thorntons encounter with Dennis's van and the bloody sheet came to light, the police immediately connected both events and secured the area. The police were able to find several fresh tire tracks and a large pool of blood. The tracks were later matched to Dennis's van. The forensics team also confirmed that the blood was Marilyn's. The police were still searching for her, but that answer came the very next day. A highway worker discovered Marilyn Dupuis' body off a deserted road between the abandoned schoolhouse and her home. She had been shot just once in the back of the head.
That's crazy.
It's very sad. Betty McClahan, Marilyn's mother, stated that, quote, we had a feeling that he had done something terrible. It was so brutal and premeditated that it makes you so angry. If she'd been killed in an automobile accident, you could get over that, but not this. After the murder, Dennis sent several bizarre letters where he rambled to friends and relatives, in which he tried justifying Marilyn's murder. To co-worker C. J. Morowski, Dennis wrote,
Marilyn had many, many opportunities to treat me fairly during this divorce, and she chose to string it out, trick me, lie to me, and when you lose your wife, children, and home, there's not much left. I was too old to start over.
Dennis sent a total of 17 letters postmarked in Virginia, Iowa, and Oklahoma. Where do you think Dennis may be at this point after sending all those letters?
I don't know, maybe out of the country?
Okay, so you think he actually made it out of the U.S.?
I mean, if I committed murder, I would definitely try to leave. Yeah.
Okay. On the evening of March 20th, 1991, in Dallas, Texas, a woman arrived home. She noticed that her boyfriend's van was sitting in the driveway, which she thought was weird because he liked keeping it in the garage. Once inside, her boyfriend Hank told her that he needed to leave right away. There was an emergency back home. His mother was very sick. She knew something was off. Hank packed his clothes and all his personal items. She also couldn't help noticing how Hank kept looking at the TV. There was an Unsolved Mysteries episode playing. Hank asked if she could make sandwiches for the emergency trip, but he only did that to keep her distracted, she later confessed. Hank didn't want her looking at the show, which featured Dennis Dupuis wanted for the murder of his ex-wife. As Hank left and drove off in his 1984 Chevrolet van, the woman knew that something was very wrong and that she would never see him again. Later that night, she learned Hank's real identity. It was, as we guessed, Dennis Dupuis, and he had been featured in Unsolved Mysteries. She called the police and gave them the license plate number of the van. 4 hours later, Louisiana state troopers had spotted his van and tried to get him to pull over. He didn't. Dennis led the police on a 15-mile highway speed chase, breaking through 2 police barricades. They decided to shoot at the front tire, but they missed, and it ended up hitting both back tires. It finally took about half a mile when he stopped. Dennis fired twice at the deputies through his windshield and another through the open window. Then Dennis did the most cowardly thing. He turned the gun on himself and fired it for the very last time. In one of the 17 letters Dennis had written to justify murdering his ex-wife, he included the following lines.
An eye for an eye, a life for a life.
Dennis had always intended to die, either by the police or by his own doing. Now, to kind of go back to Jeepers Creepers, this was the inspiration for the opening and church sequence of Jeepers Creepers. In Jeepers Creepers, the demon is dumping bodies behind an abandoned church, the same way Dennis disposed of his wife behind an abandoned schoolhouse. In Jeepers Creepers, you have the sister and brother as eyewitness who saw him dump bodies, while with Ray and Marie, they were those 2 eyewitnesses with Dennis. This inspiration was so directly lifted from the Unsolved Mysteries episode that even the shots and dialogue exchanges make the inspiration undeniable.
Yeah, no. It's kind of creepy, you know?
Like the Jeepers Creepers church scene and the highway speed chase, like all of that was taken from this episode.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I forgot to ask you earlier, have you ever watched Unsolved Mysteries?
Not that I know of, no.
Do you know what the show is about?
I mean, it's I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory. You know?
Yeah. So it's basically a show that uses reenactments and interviews to retell mysteries that are unsolved. So that could be crimes, paranormal events, and just unexplained things. So when it came to Ray and Marie, the show was using their interviews to basically reenact the entire situation that happened.
Yeah.
But once again, I feel like, yes, Jeepers Creepers, great horror movie. I mean, it's a cult classic for a reason. But at the same time, it's very creepy and very sad that this inspiration came from someone dying, Dennis was he had very
mental issues.
He was fucked up.
Yeah.
So I want to point out that out of the all of the Unsolved Mysteries episode that I have watched, it is by far the most creepiest because not only did this couple witness the disposal of Marilyn's body, but it led to an actual killer. I feel like if Ray Marie were not there that day, Dennis would have gotten away with murder.
Definitely.
So I can literally just imagine me and you being that couple, and I would be very terrified. If we were in that same exact situation, oh my God, I don't even want to think about that. But just seeing someone dispose of a body,
Yeah, you would have wanted me to stop and check it out.
I mean, not stop right there when you can literally see him, but I mean, they did the right thing, obviously, at the end of the day.
No,
so I being in their actually placing yourself in their shoes. Ray and Marie, they did the right thing, but it was a very scary situation because he was chasing them at some point too. He knew that they were onto him, and he could have tried to kill them too,
No, for sure.
But I am just glad that Marilyn got the justice that she somewhat deserved because obviously Dennis, he took out the cowardly way out. But
yeah, but I mean, he said it himself: an eye for an eye, a life for a life. So I guess in his way, that's how he
justified
it.
Yeah, which is the saddest part. But so thank you so much for listening. You can also watch video episodes on our YouTube. You can check it out on Monsters of Our Dimension. We really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. See you soon.
Yeah, guys, tune in. I'll see you guys later.